So, again, welcome. And we are happy to introduce to you, starting with Durham University and then going on to St. Andrews, UCL, and King's, four of the leading universities in the UK that I'm sure almost all of you are looking as part of your choice set when you choose your UK universities. And we're really excited to share with you an interaction with your admissions officers in leading universities, so you understand what that university stands for, get answers to questions that you may have about it, and also understand about the larger UCAS process and the personal statement and how do you prepare for it and how do you really find your way and land yourself in one of the leading UK universities in the country, right? So Matt and Savi are here from Durham, and that's typically where we are going to start. What we're going to do is, before I hand over to them to talk to you about this, I do want you guys to remember that the chat box here is for you to write messages and questions, etc. on. And we are really happy to keep making sure that you get heard and that your questions find answers. So please use that opportunity, right? That's one thing we wanted to tell you. The other one is that, some of you are requesting a recording. I think someone is trying to get AI notes going. We will be sharing a recording with everybody. So please don't worry about that. And please rest assured that the entire recording will come to you 2 to 3 days after the webinar is completed, just the amount of time it takes us to process the recording. Right. So, sorry. That's brief interruption, right? Okay. All right. Wonderful. So here we are, and we have Matt and Savi from Durham. And we've been talking to them about the beautiful city that Durham is, the beautiful university that Durham is. And I won't say so much more because I'm sure they have really a lot of in-depth insights to give you. So over to you, Matt and Savi.
Thank you very much. I'll do a very quick introduction and hand over to Savi, who's going to start. Can you see my screen? Yes, I'm getting nods. Okay, so that's good. So we're from Durham University. My name is Matt Jarvis. I'm the regional manager for South Asia. I'm based here in Durham itself. And I'm joined today by Savi, who is a country manager based in Delhi. She actually happens to be in Durham this week. So I'm going to catch up with her later today. But over to you, Savi. We'll introduce UCAS, the UCAS application process, and then speak a little bit about Durham itself as well.
Thank you so much, Matt. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining in. So I'm going to give you a quick overview about UCAS, and then Matt is going to take over and he's going to talk about Durham University and our application processes. So UCAS basically stands for the Universities and Colleges Admission Services. It's a platform that gives students an opportunity to apply to the top-ranked UK universities and all UK universities, in fact. Through UCAS, you can apply to 5 UK universities in one go, so you don't have to submit individual applications to each one of the universities that you want to apply to. So this is majorly focused only for undergrad students, so they can then go ahead, use the UCAS portal and apply to 5 universities. Through UCAS, they can research about universities, about the courses that they offer. They can read about different students' international experiences. They can see the different universities' entry requirements as well, and they can track their applications. In order to process their application through UCAS, they'll have to first register on UCAS track, which I will talk about in the next few slides. They will then have to prepare a personal statement. It has to be a generic common statement of purpose that goes to all 5 universities. So if you're applying to Durham, if you're applying to Oxford, KCL, all other universities, please make sure you do not talk about any particular university or you don't name a university, because you do not want to be applying to KCL and be talking about Durham. Right? So it's a common application. It's a common personal statement that goes to all 5 universities. On UCAS, students also have to submit a reference letter. The reference letter that we usually prefer is supposed to be from a subject teacher rather than, your class teacher or the school principal, because your subject teacher can actually talk more about your aptitude and your passion for the subject. You also need to upload your class 10th mark sheets, your 12th class predicted grades. Then IELTS is required in certain cases wherein you do not meet the English language requirements of the university. Certain universities also give English language waivers. So depending on what your offer states or what the requirements of the university are, you may be required to give an IELTS test. Certain courses also require additional examinations. For example, for medicine, you may need to undertake UCAT. For law, you'll have to undertake LNAT examination as well. So you'll have an opportunity to upload these scores as well on the UCAS portal. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Right. So to complete your application on the UCAS portal, you have to fill in 6 major categories. The first category talks about your personal details, which will be your basic information, your name, address, email ID, etc. Then the universities that you want to apply to. So you'll have 5 choices to apply to. Your educational background. So this will be an opportunity for you to talk about your 10th grades and 12th predicted grades. Employment would refer to any internships, any volunteering experience you've done. Then you have to upload your statement of purpose or your personal statement and 1 reference letter. Next slide, please. So this is the UCAS timeline for 2025 entry. The UCAS portal is already open, and applications will actually start from tomorrow onwards, from 1st of October onwards. So at the moment, you can go on, create your application, you can start with your login details, you can create your application, and from tomorrow onwards, you'll be able to submit your application. End of Jan is usually when the deadline is for the equal consideration deadline, which basically means any student who's applied until January would all be considered equally, and they'll stand an equal opportunity to be considered for admission in their respective universities. 28th Feb is when UCAS Extra opens. So in case if you want to apply to another university, you apart from the 5 choices that you've already applied to, you'll have the option to apply for that. Usually, typically in March is when, a lot of, universities will start issuing their offers. You'll start getting to get an update on your application processes. Sorry. End of June is usually the application deadline. And, this is the time when you have to finally decide which is your firm and which is your insurance deadline, because a lot of students would by then get their results. August is technically the deadline when you have to meet your conditions. And in case if you did not you did not get through with the initial predicted grades, you can then apply for clearing as well. And October is the clearing deadline, right? So this is the typical overview of the application process. But I would highly encourage, if you're really aiming for a particular university, make sure you put in a timely application, because most universities would have rolling applications. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, UCAS track is basically the application login process for, UCAS. So this gives you an opportunity to track your application, access all your choices, you can reply to your offers. You can decide if you want to go firm with a particular university or if you want to put a university as your insurance choice. I'll cover that in the next slide. Next slide, please. Right. So when you apply to different universities, so what happens is that if the university bases your predicted grades, give you an offer, and so for example, if you've got offers from 2, 3, 4 universities, or maybe all the 5 universities that you applied to, in case you're lucky, then you have to decide which is the university which is your top priority. For your top priority, if you go firm with them, that basically means once your final grades come in, you submit that, your place with the university is unconditional, and you will come through to that university. And in case, and insurance is basically just in case if your final grades do not meet the requirements for the first university, then you have a fallback option. So your insurance choice basically ensures your admission into the next university, right? And you need to make sure that once you've got the offers, once you've got the, you've gone firm in insurance with the university, you have to decline all other offers in order to ensure that you come through to the respective university. Next slide, please. Right. So regarding academic references, if I'm not wrong, I think one of the other universities is going to talk more in depth about the personal statement. So for the academic reference, I'll just give a very, very quick overview. So previously, the academic reference was supposed to be like a letter of recommendation, like on a letterhead, with all information about the student, about, their passion, about their interest and everything. Now we've made it more structured. So there are specific questions that now the referee will have to answer. And these questions basically revolve around, your school, your college, how you perform there, any information that's pertaining to any kind of circumstances where they can talk about your achievements, they can highlight those, and then they can talk about how you've been doing in that particular subject. Next slide, please. Right. So Previously, there was an option that you could apply to only one university. UCAS has decided to go away with that option. You can now apply to 5 universities in one go, and the application fee is close to £27.5. Like I mentioned, you have 5 choices. You can take advantage of the UCAS extra clearing and clearing plus through the UCAS track itself. Next,
Over
yep.
here, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Savi, but I think if you can just quickly tell them what is extra clearing and clearing plus. I think many
Right.
questions are here for that.
Okay. So UCAS Extra is basically, apart from the 5 choices, if you want to apply to another university, you have the option to apply for a 6th option as well. In that case, but you have to decline all your offers from all the previous 5 universities. Say, for example, you've applied to 5 universities and, post that you feel like that you might be eligible for another good university. So then in that case, you have to decline all your offers from the previous universities and apply. You can apply then for the 6th university. Clearing is when, in case you haven't applied for a particular university and because your predicted grades were low, so somewhere in May, June, we'll open clearing, and then you'll be able to apply to that particular university in clearing with lower grades. So certain universities might accept students with 1 grade, 2 grades down. So you'll have an opportunity to apply for those universities then in that case.
Thank you so much.
Okay. No worries, Rasha. Next slide, please.
One sec, it's not shifting. Hold on. There you go.
Thank you. So also one more thing, I think this is the last slide on UCAS, if I'm not wrong. So students now also have the access to grade tools, which basically gives you information about the university's previous track record, or what kind of applications have come in, what kind of scores the university accepts. It also helps you narrow down your choices, because basis your predicted grades on UCAS, you can see which are the universities that you would be eligible to apply. So it really, really helps you understand. And also, you can understand from students' experiences also. Their experiences also shared on UCAS. So you'll be able to read those as well and then make a more informed decision. Next, please.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Shall I take over?
Yeah.
Right, thanks, Savi. That hopefully gives you an idea on UCAS and the UCAS process. So I'll introduce you a little bit to Durham itself. So Durham University, or Durham as a city, is a historic, very traditional city in the UK, and that's reflected in our history as a university. And our reputation as well. So we're part of the Russell Group. We were one of the founding members of the Russell Group. That's 24 universities, top-ranked universities in the UK. We are consistently top 100 worldwide, top 10 in the UK. We've got a triple accredited business school, and because of our history and our tradition, we're very much a research-led university as well. You'll hear this a lot from Russell Group and top-ranked universities, what that essentially means, because it can be difficult to understand what that means to you, to students. What that essentially means is that our professors, our academics, are active researchers in their fields of specialism, in their fields of expertise. So they're pushing the boundaries of what is understood and what is known in their particular fields, which means students are coming and you're joining a classroom where you've got the opportunity to learn from these professors who are at the forefront of the knowledge in any given field. We're not just teaching the existing knowledge, we're pushing the boundaries of what is understood in any given field. We also have a focus on employability. A lot of our programs are geared around sort of preparing you and building you to take that step from education into the workplace. And as a university, we're top 50 in the world for employer reputation. The way I like to put this across is that it's not only are you coming and getting the excellent teaching and the access to these academics, but a Durham degree, as with a lot of these top-ranked universities, is just going to look good on your CV. A top degree from the UK will open doors to your future. Something that is more specific and unique to Durham is our collegiate system, our college setup. We've got 17 colleges, and I'll touch on the significance of this in a later slide. And finally, to come back to the history and the culture of the city, what you can see in this picture is actually Durham Castle. It's an 11th century castle, and it belongs to the university. We've got students living in this castle, and the castle and the cathedral in the city centre are actually designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Again, a reflection of the type of city that you'll be coming to if you do decide to come to Durham. Firstly,
Most
if you want to come to
beautiful
Durham,
parts of the university, Matt, if I may say so. It's just
it's a wonderful place to live.
architecture, a little bit like
Yeah.
Hogwarts, like we were discussing earlier.
Interesting you mentioned Hogwarts because the cathedral was actually used in the filming of Harry Potter. So in the first two movies, down the corridors and the courtyard area, they used our cathedral for the filming of Harry Potter. So it is literally Hogwarts. If you do want to join us, you'll have to find us. We are in the northeast of England. Durham is maybe not as well known as somewhere like London or Manchester, but we're up in the northeast of England. As I said, we've got a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the city centre. We are a fairly small city, so we're about 80,000 in population. We've got about 22,000 students. So it's a very student-centric, very small city because of the history, the culture, the size. It's going to be smaller, more peaceful, very student-oriented, and safer and more cost effective. It's a affordable part of the country to come and live. So if that's the experience that you want to get out of your time in the UK, Durham's going to tick a lot of those boxes for you. At the same time, we're still accessible to the big cities in the UK. There's a direct train that goes to London, takes about 3 hours, and it will take you straight into King's Cross Station. If we continue the Harry Potter theme, that's where platform 9 3/4 is. We're about 2 hours from Manchester, and the train to Newcastle, which is our nearest big city, is only 12 minutes. So you can still access the big cities there on your doorstep, and then come back and live in Durham. I won't dwell on subjects too much because you've got time, students have got time to research the different programs that they're interested in, but we teach across 4 faculties. So we have a business school, we've got a faculty of arts and humanities, we've got sciences, and we've got social science and health. Within those faculties, we've got a number of departments, which is where the programs are taught within each of those departments. So this is a snapshot. This is a recorded session, so go back, watch this, pause it on this screen if you want to see a broad spectrum of what we offer. And my slides are not moving again, 1 second.
If I may add over here, Matt,
Oh,
what I really like about
yes.
Durham is the combinations, the interdisciplinary combinations that Durham offers. Like I remember seeing a psychology and math. I haven't seen
Yep.
this in any of the other UK universities, and I think there is a psychology and business also. So I think those interdisciplinary combinations in Durham are really wonderful for students who are sort of exploring more than one area.
And thanks for picking that up because it is something that's highlighted on the screen, but I didn't speak about. So yes, we do have combined honors programs. Some of them are sort of standalone programs, so they will exist on our website as a combination of different disciplines. Or if your specific combination doesn't exist, it may still be possible to do that specific combination through our liberal arts and our natural sciences programs. And not all UK universities have this option. It's much closer to like an American system where you can sort of build your major and minor subjects. But the way this will work is within liberal arts, you pick and choose modules which are mostly focused within arts and humanities, but you can choose modules from different subject areas. And it's the same with our natural sciences program within the science field. So this will have a science focus. If you want to choose mix and match programs within sciences, within mathematics, computer science, you can take a natural sciences program. And then as long as you pick a minimum number of modules across your degree, your final degree will be a BSc Natural Sciences in mathematics and economics, which I touch on because someone asked about those specifically. So yes, there are opportunities to study those interdisciplinary subjects. So I'll touch a little bit on our entry requirements. At undergraduates, we are looking at standard 12 results between 83 and 90%, depending on which program you want to come onto, because entry requirements do differ by program. If you're on an international curriculum, that is anywhere between ABB to A*A* on A levels, or 34 to 38. Typically, most of our programs are more around the 36, 37, 38 end of that spectrum, I guess. There are some specific subjects. Savi spoke a bit more generally about medical students having additional requirements. At Durham, LLB law students or law applicants will also be required to sit an LNAT test. And I'm going to jump onto this one briefly. For any mathematics students, we can also accept a TMUA, the test for mathematics for university admissions. Now, I don't know if other universities treat this differently, but for Durham University, essentially what will happen is a TMUA result will allow for lower entry offer at A levels or A level equivalent. So you can use the TMUA to accompany your application, and it will help reduce the entry requirements from your class 12.
Matt, you're saying that it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory, no. So we
It
will,
just
if
helps
you,
the application.
it's not mandatory, but it's something that you can take to help support your application. We do sometimes get asked about whether we accept it and whether we can, whether students can apply and submit it. Yes, we do for our mathematics programs. Taking the TMUA will only increase your chances of receiving an offer. It's not going to have any negative effect on you. It may increase your chances of receiving an offer, and it may help to reduce the offer conditions, but it's not mandatory. If you are looking to study in mathematics and a number of other programs, we will require mathematics. There are programs where mathematics is a requirement, and it's in those math specific programs where TMUA can help support a student's application. So to touch on a few sort of selling points of the university, or to answer some of the common questions, I guess, that we receive about studying at Durham, scholarships is often the first thing that we are asked about, or certainly one of the things to help support you financially. We offer international scholarships. They are £5,000 for each year of study. So they will equate to £15,000 in total across your undergraduate degree. Our international scholarship does not apply for business or law programs because it's a supply and demand thing. So that's what we're looking at. If you're looking to study STEM subjects, arts and humanities, social sciences, they will all qualify for the £5,000 scholarship. It's an automatic process, so there's no separate application required. As long as you qualify, as long as we deem you successful to receive an offer, you will also receive that scholarship automatically. Communication will come separately, but the process is automatic. Colleges. This is something that sets us apart. We've got 17 different colleges. Now, first thing to mention is that when we use the term college, it's not what you might understand as a college. There's no academic teaching in our colleges. It's not, they're not separate institutions that are affiliated to Durham. They are all owned by university, and they are essentially our student sort of housing system. And we've got 17 colleges in total. Each college has its own sort of strengths. Some pride themselves on their sports, some are volunteering and outreach. And it's going to form a huge part of your social experience. Your student life at Durham is largely going to be spent in your colleges. Now, again, I'm going to continue the Harry Potter comparisons because it's an easy way to make that explanation that students understand. If you think about Harry Potter and the 4 houses they have in Harry Potter, firstly, each house has its distinct character. Our colleges are the same. Secondly, it's where students spend most of their time. Your college becomes part of your personality, becomes part of your character. Your college mates will become your extended family. That's the way you should be looking at our college system. There's no subjects, because there's no teaching. We purposely mix our colleges, so it will be a mix of male, female, mix of people from different backgrounds on different programs. So it will really allow you to integrate with other students and diversify your network as well. College application will happen alongside your academic application. So when you apply to Durham, you'll also be requested to submit a preference of college. And it changes every year. So this might be listing your top 5 preferences. And then we will allocate a college in the new year. And accommodation within those colleges are also guaranteed for first year students coming onto an undergraduate program.
Right. So, Matt, there are many questions that people have. So, I think you have 1 or 2 more slides, right? And, I think people are also
A couple
anxious.
more slides, they might answer some of the questions.
Yes.
I'll touch on the final slide on the colleges, and then maybe we can ask some questions, answer some questions, and go from there. Just to note on the colleges, this is a snapshot of the 17 different colleges and how they differ. Some are very old. Our oldest is University College, the Castle. It was established with the university in 1832. Our newest is like 3 or 4 years old. Some are catered, some are self-catered. So some you'll be expected to do your own food shopping and food cooking. Others will provide 3 meals for you per day. Some are in the city centre. They are typically our older colleges. We call them the Bailey colleges. And some of the more modern colleges are what we call our hill colleges. They're just outside the city centre. So again, when you're selecting college, think about the experience that you want, because experience in the different colleges will differ too. The map on the right-hand side is a good indication of the size of Durham city centre, and it encompasses most of our colleges are in this image. And you can walk from one end of the city to the other in 25, 30 minutes. So for most people, from your college accommodation to your classes to the city centre, it's going to be 10, 15, 20-minute walk. There are buses that help you get around, but because of the size of the city, it's very accessible on foot. So that's essentially the presentation that I had. I was going to touch a little bit on careers, and that's it actually. Dedicated careers team. I've spoken about our employer reputation. Our careers team put on a whole host of different careers focused events throughout the year, over 1,000 events per year. And when you consider there's 365 days in a year, even less if you take out weekends and holidays, it's about 3 to 5 events, careers focused events every single day of the year. And so that's it. Risha, if you want to switch over to the chats and the questions, Savi and I will be more than happy to help.
Thank you, Matt, for your time. And we have V. Anand from St. Andrews also waiting. So we'll take 10 minutes to answer the questions because there are so many. I think one, Matt did answer about jobs after undergrad and the kind of support that Durham offers. So that's great. Now, there's one question over here, which is about predicted grades. You know, a lot of Indian schools don't give students predicted grades. So they're saying, how should we arrive at the 5 universities? Now, do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
It is going to be a bit of a challenge if you don't know your predicted grades, but you should have an idea about how strong or what you're hoping to achieve. It would be a good idea to use maybe 3 of those choices to be ambitious and go for the top ranked universities that you're hoping to achieve, and at least have a couple of options which are maybe require slightly lower entry requirements, so that you do have a choice if those predicted grades are a bit lower, or if you don't receive offers from those first 3 choices, or if your final grades are lower than you hoped, you still have a couple of options. Or
but we also tell our students
yes,
is often to make the college list with its requirements and just vet it with your college counselor in school once.
exactly.
So the college counselor may not be able to tell you the predicted grades, but typically they will tell you that, oh, this one seems a little out of your reach. This one seems like this is okay. Hey, why are you hitting so low? Why don't you hit a little higher? So they'll, gently guide you and you'll get an idea of where you stand.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's another question over here about sorry.
There's one on TMUA, which says if you put in the application in October, November, can you submit your TMUA results later in Jan, Feb, whenever they come out? TMUA, if it's taken in January, I believe the results will come. They'll take 6 weeks to come. So is that all right to send in late results?
Yep, that's fine. As long as you give yourself enough time to meet the entry requirements to get all of that process, that's absolutely fine. You can, like the English language, you don't have to submit it with your application. You can submit it later, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There's also a question about timely. I think you said submit your applications timely. So, what do you mean by that? And also if someone submits it early, do they get their results early?
So yeah, the question was specifically, does it give you a better chance of receiving an offer? Does it give you a better chance of receiving an offer as long as you apply before January? No, everyone will receive the same chance of getting an offer if they apply before January. it may increase your chances of receiving an offer earlier. Like was mentioned in the chat in reply, Durham University and a lot of universities will have rolling admissions. So we will process applications as they come in, basically. And so if we're making decisions and you were one of the earlier applications, there's a higher chance that you receive a decision sooner. So you might receive your decision sooner, but it won't increase your chances of receiving a decision.
I really like the distinction that you've made, because, it creates this anxiety among students that, must I apply immediately? There's a question over here about tuition fees and cost of attendance. Do you want to just give us an overview of that, Matt? Or Sabi?
Yeah, certainly. So tuition fees are anywhere between sort of £25,000 per year, up to closer to £30,000 per year. They change every year, so keep an eye on our website. I don't think they've been announced or published for next year just yet. So that's what you're expecting to pay for tuition fees. The cost of living, accommodation, travel, general expenses, you may expect to pay anywhere between £9,000 to £12,000 per year. So that should give you an idea about sort of expenses, yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. I know there are many questions here about the TMUA, but I thought that perhaps UCL could answer that. But I'll ask you one specific question. I know for Durham, the TMUA is not a requirement for any course as such, but it does enhance your possibilities of getting admission in case you've taken it. So suppose a student applies now in October and November and then takes the TMUA in Jan, will that be considered?
Yeah, we can always consider additional documents to support an application. So yes, we can consider it if it's sent later.
Right. Okay. All right. Wonderful. So I think the other one has been about the IELTS, but Savi has been answering everyone's questions directly. So yeah. Okay. So that's a very quick answer.
Maybe I'll touch on that briefly for the wider audience, just in case people are not looking at the chat. We do have IELTS requirements. These will be what are published on the website, but also we can accept your standard 12, your class 12 English language scores as well, as long as a student gets above 80% in year 12, and we can use that to waive the English requirements.
Yeah, but Matt, I believe IELTS is a visa requirement also for Indian students, so you can't avoid IELTS. If they're asking for law, in any case, LNET also, they do need to give IELTS test.
Yes and no. So the visa requirement is to be proficient in English, and the published requirements are in IELTS. However, if the university have made the assessment that as long as a student receives 80% on their standard 12, we would deem them qualified in terms of English language. And as we are the ones sponsoring the student for their visa, there will be a note on their visa to say that the higher education institute has basically assessed their English language and deemed them to be qualified. So they don't need, if they get over 80% on their standard 12, we will waive the English. We will waive the IELTS. There's no need to also provide the IELTS for CAS purposes.
Thanks for clarifying.
The questions are still pouring in. I'll pick up one which I think should summarize a lot of what this is. So Ashit over here is asking, do international graduates from UK universities get any preference for work visas when offered UK jobs? I think what they mean is, compared to other international people who might be applying for work visas, would a student who studied in the UK get a preference?
Potentially. So job applications will be based on your written application, based on your face-to-face application, which will be an interview, and what you can express, and based on your merit, basically. So if you're able to express within your written application and within any interviews how and why you will be qualified for this program, those job applications will be based on merit. Now, having a UK degree that is relevant to the job that you're applying to will go a long way into showing that you are well qualified. It shows that you've spent 3 years or 1 year on a master's in the UK, you've settled in the UK, you understand the culture, you understand life in the UK, you've had that settle period already versus someone who hasn't. So it can definitely help you. Can I directly say that having it is better than not having it? Yes. Can I guarantee that it makes you better than other job applicants? Not necessarily, but it will certainly help you. Yeah.
So I think the last question, and this is a very, very big question in everybody's minds, and I think people really want an answer to this, is about the variation from the predicted scores, that how much variation is acceptable. And Savi has answered, saying not more than 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, this is quite a nuanced question, and it will differ by university. So different universities will respond to this in different ways. So at Durham University, if you miss your, so one thing to touch on is most students will receive a conditional offer. If you're applying to the US and stuff, this may be different. They may offer unconditional offers immediately. That's not going to happen in the UK because you haven't finished your class 12. You will receive conditional offers. What that means is when you get your final grades, you will need to make sure that you achieve these marks. Now, if those marks that you do achieve at the end of the day are slightly below, we have what we call the opportunity to give you a near miss offer. And this will depend on availability of the program. So our most popular programs we're not likely to be able to provide any flexibility. So if you miss the entry requirements, we're going to have to reject you because you haven't met the conditions on your offer. For other programs, and this year there was actually quite a lot where we were able to offer near misses. If you're 1 or 2 grades down and you had Durham as your firm choice, that will get sent to the university and admissions will make a decision as to whether we can accept you or not. If you're 1 or 2 grades down, there is still a possibility that we can accept you, yes. It depends if the course is still open, which is the critical point.
On that very positive note, Matt, thank you so much for providing all the answers. It would be wonderful if you guys could also share your email IDs. So, anyone who has any specific questions could reach out to you later. And I'm so glad to see that all the questions are pouring in, because this is the time for all students and parents to get really focused around the applications to UK. Particularly since October 15 deadlines are coming up, and people are starting to work on their statements of purpose, even if they're looking at January. So this was a very, very useful and very timely session. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, Savi.
Thanks for having us. And I've just popped my email in the chat, and I'm sure Savi has literally just done the same. Thank you, Savi.
Thank you,
Thank
Savi.
you so much, Romi, Richa, for having us. It was lovely interacting with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we'd like to now welcome Mr. Veer Anand, who's always been extremely forthcoming with answering questions for our students for all the webinars that we've been doing over the years on UK, and it's always a very exciting picture that we see in St. Andrews, and therefore so many of our students are now studying there and sort of echoing the vision that Veer Anand will really show you. So Veer, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Just going to quickly share my screen. Hopefully that's,
Yeah, we can see it.
yeah, does that work?
Yes.
How much how much time am I working with? About 20 minutes?
About half an hour is good, Veer. We'll just push things out.
Okay.
But it's all
Okay,
right.
perfect. So, no, happy to be here again. I think this is maybe the second or third year running, and thank you for your invite again, and glad to be here.
Oh dear.
For the audience, just a quick sort of introduction about myself. I think it just helps put things in context. But I actually was studying in Delhi myself. I did my high school in Delhi from the Shri Ram School. And then post that, I did my undergraduate degree from St. Andrews. So I studied management, but also did modules in economics and philosophy, something that I'm talking about today. I then worked in London briefly. So I was in a small consulting firm, post which then I moved back and now sort of look at recruitment in India and around India, in the Middle East, worked in other parts also. So I've been in maybe the position that a lot of the students find themselves in today. So I'm quite happy to answer all sorts of questions in that regard. So the brief given to me today was actually to cover the 4-year degree structure in Scotland, and that is something that I will do in a lot of detail. So I'm don't have too much on a St. Andrews sort of perspective in terms of the university, but I can always answer questions about it. And I've just added a few slides just to do with the requirements and so on. But what I'm focusing on is the 4-year degree structure today. That's my email. So, you can reach out to me directly. You can also email the General India email where the team looks at it. They'll obviously be able to answer questions as well. And if not, it'll come to me in any case. So feel free to use either email, whatever suits you. So what I will do is talk about the 4-year degree structure. I'll give you some examples of what degrees look like, compare it with, some major destinations in the world. Also talk a little bit about the employability aspect when it comes to the 4-year degree structure and how you might be able to use it. And then, of course, answer questions that you may have. So I'll try and keep it to about 20 minutes, and then that gives us enough time to go through some questions. Quite interesting because I happened to hear the last bit of my colleague at Durham. And, it's quite interesting that every university has their own take on certain aspects, when it comes to misconditions and so on. So we can reiterate some of those questions and points from the St. Andrews perspective. Okay, so here goes. So when we look at the world today, there's really three major sort of degree structures that we have. A quick point to note for everyone here is that we often assume that England is the UK, or sometimes not even England, we think it's just London. The UK actually has 4 different countries. So it's England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And why that's important is because while it's the same visa, the same work permit, and your 2-year graduate route, and so on, the education system and the legal system is actually different. And we do have um, a Scottish government and so on. So there's subtle differences. And one of the major differences actually comes from the degree structure. So England, and what we've inherited in India from England, is the 3-year degree. So you apply for a particular subject, you do that subject for 3 years. You don't really have the chance to change your mind or to look at, different options. So it's quite a rigid system in that regard. Um, some universities, I think Durham may also have it, but they have now a liberal arts course because they've realized the interdisciplinary part of it, but it's still not really as flexible as what you may have in the 4-year degree structure. The other extreme in the world is obviously the United States. You have the liberal arts and sciences, but there's almost 4,000 universities in the US. And so this is obviously generalized information from my perspective, but just to help put things in context, you can go in, undecided. You can follow a core curriculum. You can do many different subjects, but often you have to pick between pockets of subjects. So it might be a math, an English, a social science, languages, so on. So you have to do these before you sort of declare your major and move on. So it's very good for someone who maybe loves history, who loves biology, wants to explore different subjects. That's a really good program for you. And if you know exactly what you want to study, maybe save a year, do your master's in a 1-year time span and complete your sort of bachelor's and master's degree, then obviously the English 3-year model may be something to look at. Scotland, whom I represent today, actually sits somewhere in the middle. So again, if you're looking for flexibility, breadth of education in the UK context, and maybe don't want to necessarily go to the US, in the UK, you have Scotland. There's about 19 universities that offer a 4-year degree structure. And the way it works is largely you have a subject that you apply for. Is that a
I'm
question?
so sorry. I think someone unmuted themselves by mistake.
Okay, no problem. If there is a question, we can take that on later also.
Was that
But
a
I'll carry
question?
on. Yeah.
I'll just encourage everyone to put the questions in the meeting chat. You carry on, Veer. Thanks.
Okay, sure. So the first year, obviously, when you apply, you still apply through the UCAS model. So the way you would apply to the rest of the universities in the United Kingdom, you declare an interest in a particular subject. But in Scotland, we don't lock you into that subject necessarily. So you actually can take a few more subjects. That can be anything that you want to study. It doesn't have to be pre-decided for you. And you have 2 years largely to try your hand at a few different subjects and then decide what you want to do in your third and fourth year. That could be a single degree, it could be a joint degree in two subjects. There was a question about economics and mathematics, or you could take economics and computer science, for example. And you don't have to know that today. You can actually decide anytime in the first 2 years. So it's slightly different to the US system, where it's not a core curriculum, but equally it's very different to the 3 year model in England, where it's 4 taught years. So if you are looking for that breadth and flexibility, then Scotland really stands out and gives you that within the UK context. So I'm just going to go through the way we do it at St. Andrews. Every Scottish university does it slightly differently, but it won't be correct for me to talk about them. I don't have enough information. So just talking about the way we do our degree here. But that's an illustration of, our arts degree. So you can actually take subject 1, 2, and 3 for 2 years. You can actually do up to 5 subjects. If you keep one subject common in the first 2 years, and that's exactly what you want to do, you can actually explore up to 5 subjects. But largely, we see students wanting to keep that flexibility open, so they take 3 subjects in the first 2 years, then decide if they want to continue with that particular subject as a single honors degree, or they actually want to combine 2 subjects in a joint honors. So look at it as a pyramid. You start off broad, you have that ability to gain knowledge in many different subject areas, and then you decide, okay, this is what's for me, and this is what I want to take on in my career. And then you sort of chip away and fine tune your academic route. So what that looks like in terms of some examples. So you can see in the first example, someone actually applying for ancient history, taking up Spanish and philosophy, and actually changing their mind, which isn't uncommon. About 40% of our students would actually graduate in a different degree than what they may have applied for. So whether that means changing to another subject or combining it with a different subject that they hadn't applied to. So that's one example over there. Equally, in the BSc, we have a student who's continued with what they had applied for, but also gained a lot of knowledge when it came to chemistry and doing statistics for 2 years, but also finding their niche within the subject that they had applied into. So you can start off and apply for a biology or a chemistry, and you can continue that particular route as well. But in this case, they've actually further found their specialization within biology and graduated with a BSc in marine biology. So just 2 different examples of how students may use their degree. Another example that I would give, a lot of students who do, for example, international relations, which is something that St. Andrews is renowned for. We find that they know what they want to do, but they actually find it quite useful to study um, a language for 2 years, because that's something that they might require if they're looking at world organizations. So there's different ways of using the degree. Even if you know exactly what you want to study, you can still benefit from the 4 year degree structure. Equally, if you want a little bit more flexibility, then maybe the 3 year model, you can get that. And we don't mandate what else you can take. So you can decide what you want to study within your faculty. So we largely have 4 different sort of subject departments, if you want to call it that, or faculties. The arts, the sciences, medicine, and divinity. Medicine is a completely different degree structure and sort of path. If there is anyone here looking at medicine, we can take that on in the questions later, just because it's probably less applicable to everyone else. Um, and those are some subjects that we offer. Many different combinations. You can do, management and economics. You can do, film studies and combine it with something else. You can do international relations and management, for example. So many different ways of using the different degree structures that we have. The interesting group of subjects is the cross faculty. So these are subjects that can be done both as a BSc in the sciences or the MA in the arts. And before someone corrects me, it is an MA. So St. Andrews is an ancient university. And so we have a special privilege of calling our BA an MA. It's something we've done for centuries, so we continue to do that. But it is a BA. And then what you would associate with an MA is actually called an MLit. So you can find this in other ancient universities as well. So the questions that I tend to get, is why do a 4 year degree? Now, I've already been through the basics are someone who wants flexibility in their education, obviously would take up a 4-year model rather than a 3-year model. But it's actually something that we found has been extremely employable as well. I gave you the example with the language, but equally we find employers are looking for those cross-subject links that students can make. It helps them in the different career opportunities that are coming about, which are also interdisciplinary. So we find that it really helps them in that sense as well. It also allows you to sort of discover your strengths. You might not know what you want to do in school. I remember when I was in school, sometimes my favorite subjects just used to be because you connect with a particular teacher, or the way that, the teacher is teaching certain concepts, and you think, oh, I love mathematics or I love economics. But then when you go to university, it may look completely different. So you have that little bit more time to figure it out. And like I said, in the Scottish degree structure, you can take those additional subjects as you wish to. You also then develop a broad range of skills. So I actually would argue that my 2 years in philosophy actually made me a much better writer when it came to my management program. So even though I continued with management and did finance and so on, but actually the ability to articulate your points, to actually argue your points of view, that skill actually came from philosophy. So you actually do develop a lot of different skills that help you in maybe the subject that you want to study as well. Um, and it doesn't restrict you to study abroad. All the Scottish universities, including St. Andrews, has many different study abroad options in your third year. This could be in the US, it could be in China, it could be in Singapore, Australia, anywhere. So it doesn't limit those possibilities as well. And again, you'd be surprised if you just go through some of the domestic rankings. A lot of the 4-year degree courses in Scotland rank very highly. And so it's equally employable and reputed as any 3-year degree. So I'll come to sort of the slides that I'd sort of put together right now, just to give you a brief about St. Andrews, but we do very well. I'm not one who stresses too much on the rankings, but it is important from a variety of different perspectives. We always do very well in student satisfaction. It's one of those areas that we consistently have ranked very highly in. But equally, we were the first university a few years ago now to actually beat the Oxford Cambridge monopoly at the top of the rankings. And we've done that for a few years now. This year, I think there's some updated rankings. We're number 2 to LSE, but still ahead of Oxbridge, and do very well in the world rankings for university that's small to mid-size. So we do well. We're very proud of that. Our academics work very hard, but equally, all the supporting teams do a very good job to make sure that students are taken care of, and they get that attention that they rightly deserve. So I'm going to come to this slide, and this is where things start to get a little different. And the UCAS does have an equal consideration deadline. We are part of the UCAS, and we follow that as well. Having said that, we follow a rolling admissions process. We really encourage Indian students to try and apply by the 30th of November to be as competitive as possible, because just the way the rolling admissions process works, we make offers. And so the later you leave it, then obviously seats get taken up, and anything beyond Jan, of course, is something that we find difficult to make offers. St. Andrews is extremely competitive. It's a great place to study. I was lucky to spend 4 years there, but grades enough aren't. You need to have a very strong person statement. So grades alone won't make the difference. We expect it to be quite focused on the subject area that you're applying for. It should be personal. It's okay to mention extracurriculars, but that should be maybe, 20% of your personal statement. But it's all about the directly related activities, evidence of reading, academically written, skills that you feel are going to be relevant to the classroom or the subject. So you need to obviously showcase that you have that passion for the subject that you want to study. And you are going to be talking about this with colleagues later, so I won't talk too much about it. But from our perspective, it's an extremely important piece of work. We get enough students who get the highest of grades, and we don't give them an offer and reject them because their personal statement isn't up to par. So it's certainly for us something that we take very seriously.
If I can just ask you a question there, Veer,
Yeah.
on the 30th November deadline. So, people do, I think St. Andrews is on almost all lists that we work with,
Yeah.
and therefore 30th November means that you have to gear yourself in a particular way. Sometimes, you may be expecting a better predicted grade in January, but, you're applying in November anyway. So, does applying early also mean that these students would get a decision earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. So we tend to make decisions in about 5 to 6 weeks. We don't normally keep students waiting for too long. There are certain subjects where we might have a wait list, but even in that scenario, we would make sure that students are aware of what we're doing, so they know exactly where they stand. So yes, applying early means that you would receive a decision in that 5 to 6 week span. Um, and let's say you're in a scenario where you get your updated predicted grades and we haven't made a decision on your application. You can update those grades with us. And equally, let's assume a scenario where you might be wanting to give another set of examinations to see if you can, the predicted grades can go up. The UCAS allows you to fill in, your choices in a scattered manner also. So, if you wanted to apply to St. Andrews by the 30th, you could do that and then, fill in the other choices later. That's something that you could do. And equally, it might be a strategic decision to wait. You might feel, okay, I'm not meeting requirements, but I might meet requirements after, this set of examinations. I'm just a point away, or I'm just, a few percentage um, points away from meeting the requirements. In that case, it's very important to meet requirements. In that case, I would say, okay, wait. And of course, you can apply till the end of Jan. But if you're ready, you meet requirements, then then yes, you're likely to get a decision earlier. Again, it doesn't mean that you get an advantage. If you don't meet requirements, you could apply in October and it won't be a positive result. But it's just that ruling admissions process does tend to get you that earlier decision, if all goes well for you.
So in continuation to this question, Veer, I just want to clarify, if somebody doesn't hear from St. Andrews in about 6 weeks, is it
Yeah.
safe to assume that the student hasn't gotten, or so the student should still expect some kind of response
No,
from?
not at all, not at all. And I would strongly disagree with that, because don't assume anything. Sometimes it's just a matter of us sometimes asking for more information, so it may take more time. Sometimes it could be a competitive subject that we want to, hold on to the application for. In most cases, we would then, notify the student. But it's always good to get back in touch with us if you haven't heard back in 5 or 6 weeks. But certainly don't assume anything. That doesn't mean anything. If we don't make a positive decision, we let the students know. So,
Okay.
if it is a rejection, it'll turn out to be a rejection for the student and we'll notify them. But not hearing does not mean a rejection. It could mean various different things, but certainly don't make those assumptions.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, okay, so grade requirements wise, of course, like the the person at Durham mentioned, that it's going to be different according to every subject that you apply for. The range for the IB is about 36 to 38, but most subjects are at 38. I just recall a few subjects now at a 36. But you will have subject specific requirements as well. So make sure that you meet both the overall requirements and then the subject specific requirements. Similarly, for the CBSE ISC, last year we had sort of most subjects are in that 90 to 93 range, but there are a few subjects that are at an 85 as well. So again, you need to make sure that you see the overall score. This is an average of all 5 subjects, and it doesn't guarantee entry. So just because you met the 93 doesn't mean that you get an offer. This is sort of the standard requirement we look at, and ideally, you want to be meeting um, that requirement, but also exceeding it if possible. So the predictives need to indicate that. We might also ask for your grades from the ninth onwards sometimes. Definitely the 10th grade, looking at your progression, consistency over the last few years. And we do have some basic sort of English and math requirements that we look at sort of in the 10th grade as well. So, it needs to be consistent, and it needs to be sort of a positive trajectory that you're following. And that's something that I think sometimes students get a little confused with. So it's overall as well as the subject specific scores. And just to answer another question that I briefly heard when I came in, um, if you don't meet your condition, it becomes very difficult with us. So I really encourage you to meet those. If you haven't, let us know. It depends on the subject, many different scenarios, but traditionally I've found it to be quite difficult if you're not meeting the conditional offers.
So there
In
isn't
terms,
much flexibility, is what you're saying, Behl.
not much. I mean, again, if it's a subject, so St. Andrews, we don't, for example, at least for the last few years, haven't really gone into clearing or anything like that because we tend to see we have enough students applying and offers in any case. But if it's something like a point, maybe it's worth asking a question. But if it's certainly anything more than a point, then it does become quite tough. So I would still say, let's send it to us, let us make a decision. But it's a scenario that you don't want to be in. Also because it can take some more time to make that decision, and that then just puts a lot of pressure on you and your visa, and we start at the beginning of September, so by the time things can get processed, you're actually then putting yourself in a very difficult position in any case. But anything more than a point, even in a non-competitive subject, may not work. Definitely in the competitive subjects you need to meet your conditions.
Right. Veer, there's a question here about the TMUA.
Yeah.
You don't require the TMUA for
No, we don't. I think the TMUA is right now, I think, being tested, I think, with 3 or 4 universities. We don't have that requirement. We don't look at the TMUA.
Right, absolutely. So, last question, Veer. This
Yep.
is about something that you cover every year, and I think you touched upon it here right now as well, which is about the potential for these students to do jobs. St. Andrews being a small town, and then they compare it to the idea of being in London. And yet, I know every time that you've shared with us the efforts the university makes and the very good placement results that you have.
Yep, sure.
A little bit, if you could just highlight that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, I mean, just look at the stats more than anything else, anything that I can see. We sit at close to a 96%, which is full-time employment or further study, within a year or 15 months of graduating. So it's right up there with, any other city university. The second point that I want to make is that remember that it's no longer a case of you handing out your CVs at reception desks. No one's going to accept your CV like that. So you need to go through a process. Since I've been through the process, I can talk a little bit about it. You have your aptitude test first. If you clear that, then you have a phone interview where you chat with, the HR teams about your CV and what you've done. If they think you're suitable for the role, they'll then call you to the office, which could be anywhere. It could be Edinburgh, Glasgow, it could be London, wherever you've applied, to go there and have an assessment center. So that's with other candidates. You then have an interview, and then in some cases, a final interview as well. And you can always make that trip. So whether you look at Oxford, Cambridge, St. Andrews, Durham to a large extent, Warwick to a large extent. Um, None of these are actually city universities, and they're some of the best universities that you'll find in the UK. And that won't be the case if employability was a problem. So that's one aspect is you're going to be following a certain structured process which allows you to do that. The second thing is we've got at least 250 of the top employees in the UK coming to St. Andrews every year, and one of the biggest career offices that you have in any university in the UK. So specialization wise, you can actually get the right input from our team, and they'll obviously help you prepare for whether it's interviews and assessment centers and so on. So there's a lot of support there as well. And of course, you've got platforms like we've got our own networking platform. It's called Saint Connect. It's for current students and alumni around the world. And so, as a current student, you can reach out to any alumni who might be working in any company around the world to gain their advice. You can send them an email, maybe organize a Zoom chat at some point. And obviously, because it's coming through that platform and it's a St. Andrews connection, they might be more willing to take that time to reply to students. So again, yes, of course, if you're in a city, there's certain things that you have in a city. You can enjoy the luxury of being in a London and what London has to offer. But equally, if you're in a small campus town like a St. Andrews or Oxford or Cambridge, then it's all about the community. It's about the society. It's about the academic environment, and that's got its own benefits. So certainly, there's pros and cons to both. It's about finding what's right for you. But employability wise, certainly not being in a city is something that you can certainly counter by just being proactive and being connected with your career offices.
Absolutely. I also wanted to highlight to the audience that, we were saying Hogwarts when we talked about Durham, that, you want to get a glimpse of St. Andrews in a picturesque world, you should watch The Crown,
Yeah.
with both Prince William and Princess Kate having studied there. So it's highlighted in some beautiful scenes by the shore. And so then I asked some of my students who are studying that is it really like that? And they said, oh, yeah, the sea's there all the time. It's like, it's just in your backyard. So I guess you stop being awestruck by it, but it's really beautiful.
It's absolutely stunning, and there's a lot of tradition, and for example, there's something called academic families that I love. So it's actually third years adopting first years as academic kids, and then you have brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, and it's just a nice informal mentoring model. But equally, you find history everywhere. There's actually a cafe called the North Point Cafe. And even right now, they have this text written outside which says where Kate met Wills, because that's where they went on their first date when they were doing their undergrad at St. Andrews. So there's a lot of that history and, interesting facts scattered all around town. But I think I'm running out of time and I do want to take a few questions if I can. I just want
Yeah.
to answer this question because I know it's
Yes.
going to come up as a question anyway. Fees wise, we're roughly at about £31,000 a year. That's the tuition fee annually. And then living costs, of course, tend to be around 10,000 in the UK, depending on your accommodation and alike. We do have some scholarships, but we're so competitive that we don't automatically consider you. You need to apply for them. And the range starts from a few £1,000s, and then we've got something called the International Excellence Scholarship, which is almost fully funded as well, and then some categories in between. So you need to look at those. Once you put in your application, we send you an email with a link to the scholarships, and you need to then apply for the scholarships. They're not automatically considered in that way. So that's just to cover sort of the funding aspect. So that's me for the session.
Veer, just before I hope do you have a couple of minutes because someone here has some questions on the medicine program. Would you be able to talk about that?
Absolutely, I have time. I just hope I'm not, you know, eating into
No, Davina's just come in. So, here there's
Okay.
a
Yeah.
question here
So
saying,
what I
my nephew is applying for medicine this year with a
yeah.
90% predicted grade in CBSE and 30/80 UCAT. So it's a very specific question.
Yeah, well, let me just quickly cover sort of the medicine thing. So we do sort of a 6-year medical program. Medicine is extremely competitive in the UK. Most universities will have anywhere between sort of 15 to maybe 25, 30 seats for international students. You can only apply to 4 out of 5 choices in your UCAS as medical choices. One must be a non-medical choice, and you follow the Oxbridge deadline to apply, which is the 16th of October, I believe, this year. You not only have to give the IELTS, there's no exemption for that. You also have to give the UCAT, and we invite about 400 students for interviews. Now, every year, the UCAT requirement, etc., can change according to the pool applying, and then you have to obviously give situational tests and so on. So it is a very, very difficult process for medical students. Now, I think there's a question, very specific one. I do believe you're probably looking at closer to, 90% would be sort of maybe just under the requirements or average in that sense. You also need to get 90 and above in particular in chemistry and a few more sciences, math and biology. And then, of course, the UCAT score looks okay, but then it would have to be supplemented by strong high school academics, a strong progression from year 10. And the one thing that I would add is something that most Indian applications, particularly for medicine, but I think this applies for any person statement from India, is that we like to be clubbed into, you know, all Indian applications love to follow the same template. It's introduction to internships, extracurricular conclusion. And in that sort of very structured skeleton, what you miss out is actually being able to express yourself. And the one thing that medicine students particularly lack from India is a reflective attitude. So you need to not only summarize your achievements and your directly related activities, but also reflect back on them, what you've learned, what you did about it. Your own voice is important as well. So if you are applying for medicine, reflective aspects about your personal statement are even more important than maybe other degrees. So that's the sort of process for medicine. Um, it is extremely competitive, and you need to then also be ready to prepare for those interviews, the situational tests. And so that's something that you need to look at.
Right. So just briefly taking a validation from you on my answers to a couple of questions. So interviews are not there for any other subjects, right? Only for medicine, am I right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's all medicine students have to go through that process. We take in the CBSE, ISC, IB. So you can apply directly. You don't have to do a foundation year. If you've done the Indian boards, you can apply directly. I think there's a question. Other subjects don't, we don't have a formal interview process. We can obviously go back and ask for information if we need it, if we need something in the process, but it's not something that we generally do.
Right. Great. And you don't offer law, right?
No, we don't. We don't have a law school. No.
Thank you. I think that's a lot of very, very deep insights from you, Veer. Thank you so much for your patience and always for, giving us this very exciting view of the university. So you've shared your email ID, and if anyone has any more questions, they can reach out to you. Veer shared his email ID again in the chat. So you can just reach out to him if there are any specific questions. And thank you again, Veer, for taking the time. It's
No,
always
not at all. And I seem to always do a little bit of injustice. I don't talk too much about St. Andrews and talk about all the
yes.
other stuff. But
Last time we had said we would fix that.
yeah, but to all the parents or students here, just go onto the website. There's a lot of different resources, and if you want anything in particular, just let me know.
Thank you so much for your time, Veer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have Davina with us, and Davina is representing UCL. UCL is again an extremely popular university for students to apply to, and becoming increasingly competitive. I think it's the fact that UCL is in London and the fact that it's highly rated does mean that a lot of people look upon it as a dream university. And we've had students struggle, and we've had students say, "Oh, UCL or nothing." So we have Davina now to give us a view of both of UCL and her view of applying and so on to UK in general. So there she is, Davina. I have lots of questions for you, but I'm not going to take your time right now. Let's hear you out, and then we will throw all the questions at you.
No problem at all. Thank you so much, Richa. Thank you so much, Romy, and welcome to everyone. Thank you for taking out the time to listen to all of us. And before I begin, allow me to share my screen with you, please. It's just been some time that I've used this one. Okay, desktop.
I think your voice is also
And then,
Breaking.
so is my screen visible?
it sort of says she has started sharing, but we're not really seeing the screen yet. I think you're frozen now, Davina.
Yeah, I think there's some issue
There's
with the
an internet
connectivity.
issue there, right. Okay. All right. In the meanwhile, I know that there are many questions here that we didn't.
Am I audible?
Davina, your video is frozen and your voice is sort of cracking. So it would probably be, I don't know, if you want to rejoin or move where you're sitting to a better
Allow me. Yeah. Yep. Just a second.
So, to everybody here who's listening to them, there was something Veer said in passing, which I wanted to highlight to you, which is about the foundation program. Now, foundation programs are actually an excellent opportunity that UK universities offer students who are not achieving the kind of grades that they want to get into the universities that they aim for. And you can take that foundation year, sort of like a gap year, building your skills. And, so long as you do decently, you have almost a guaranteed progression into that university's actual bachelor's program in the next year. So especially for CBSE and ICSE students, it's not really open for IB students, but for CBSE and ICSE students, you should really explore the foundation programs and see if that, answers your questions about specific universities. Davina's still sort of finding her spot, I think, right? Okay, so I can sort of chatter on till then and try and answer some of the questions over here about interviewing. Interviewing is part of either Oxbridge or medicine. Imperial has some interviews as well. There you are, Davina.
Hi, Richa. Am I audible now?
Yes, this is perfect.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, and apologies for the tech issues.
Not at all.
I'm in a part of Gurgaon where internet is quite a challenge here. But yeah, I'll quickly begin my presentation. So just to give you a brief introduction, I'm Davina, and I look after UCL. I'm based out of Delhi, and I look after North and East of India, along with my colleagues, one of them who is based out of Bombay, and one of them is based out of Bangalore. So I'm not sure what your audience is, but we have somebody to cater to all of these students wherever they are. A good tip to stay in touch with us is if your viewers can scan the QR code that you can see. You will be able to register your interest and also get more details about UCL. And then my email address is also on your screens at the moment. Right. So beginning with, we are UCL. We are a top ranking university in the world. We are number 9th on the QS rankings. And we are also one of the largest universities in the UK when it comes to student population. So we have over 51,000 students studying with us across different levels from 150 plus nationalities. And when it comes to choosing your courses as well, we have over 400 programs that you can look out for. And because we are so large in terms of a community, you're also looking at joining a very diverse alumni cell as well. Once you are part of the institution, we have over 30 Nobel laureates across all the fields that in which Nobel Prizes are given. And it's not just about studying, it's not just about research, but we also have a very diverse student interests as well. So over 450 plus student clubs and societies, including sports and varsity, that you can be a part of. And if there is something that does not appeal to you and you want to be engaged with, then you're also free to look at starting your own club or society as well. And our biggest takeaway, of course, is that we are based in the heart of London. So we are in Zone 1, and London has been voted one of the best cities to be a student in the world. So you are coming to a very big and a diverse city as well when you're choosing to study with UCL. We have 3 campuses. Our UCL Bloomsbury campus is the oldest. We'll be celebrating 200 years of existence in 2026. And it is one of the largest campuses also in central London compared to all your London-based universities. We have a new campus in East London, which houses all your latest interdisciplinary courses that we have started, and also some state-of-the-art labs and innovation centers too. And then we also have our School of Management, which sits in Canary Wharf. And if any one of you have been to London, so you will know that Canary Wharf is the financial district of the country and to some extent of Europe as well. And you'll see we have some very famous neighbors as well around us, be it the British Museum, the London Eye, Houses of Parliament, Oxford Street, and we can go on and on about that as well. In terms of finding your degree as to what to study, I mentioned we have over 400 courses to choose from. All of those 400 courses actually sit within our 11 faculties. We range from arts and humanities to brain sciences. Built environment is our School of Architecture, which is ranked #1 in the world. Our Institute of Education also is ranked #1 in the world for all your education-related degrees. We have engineering sciences, law, life sciences, medicine, mathematics, social and historical science. I think we offer everything under the sun that you can think of, except for courses in fashion, creative arts, culinary, and we also do not yet host aerospace or aeronautical engineering at the moment. Some of the new degrees that we are starting from 2025 intake is our BA in Arts and Technology, Communications, Construction Engineering. On popular demand, we're also starting with BSc International Management, which does not require math to come into our program. So this is one of the only programs which does not have a math requirement. But a caveat here is that because this is the pilot program that we are starting, we only have 50 spaces for this year. So you need to be very, very competitive. You need to have a stellar application to get through. But it is an offering that we are trialing out. And I'm sure, looking at the popular demand and the oversubscription that this course is going to get, we are going to increase our intake from the subsequent years. Another new interesting course that is coming up is Philosophy and Computer Science. And then we have Youth, Society, and Sustainable Futures as well. So one of the key things that we focus on is about not just how to think, but what to think. That makes our course curriculum and our pedagogy really unique. We have employability embedded in all our courses. Most of our all of our engineering programs come as an interdisciplinary or integrated engineering programs where you can pick up allied subjects or something completely different, such as languages or public policy or data science, nanotechnology, fintech. All of this can be studied as part of your engineering programs. And as you progress into years, you can pick up more modules to make it an exciting choice. So while we may not be doing majors and minors in a way, but you always have an opportunity to explore more than what is already been subscribed. And that is why we say that, it's not just about how you're learning or what you're learning, but also as to how and what you think and how you incorporate that in your education and in your degrees. Of course, as Richa mentioned initially, we are competitive, but we are not impossible. That's the motto you should look at when you're applying to UCL. I know we have a very small acceptance rate, and we get thousands of applications, 79,000 applications for 7,000 places in 2023. And you can see some of our most applied to courses have a very high per seat fighting figure as well. So you had almost 26 students for one application, for one seat in our computer science department. So my subsequent topic about how to get through UCL will be, I'll be covering that. To begin with, I think when you're applying to a competitive institution like UCL, there is no set square. There is no straight-jacketed way of saying what will work and what won't work. Our first and foremost, the most important bit is your minimum eligibility or entry requirements. So we really triage our applications when they come to us on the basis of how much have you scored or what your predicted grades will be. If you do not meet the predicted grades, your application will automatically be rejected. So you need to be very realistic when you are making an application to UCL. For our A levels, most of our courses, at least in our STEM subjects, will range from A star A to A star AA. The ABB that you can see on your screens is usually for our arts and humanities programs, and for our less popular programs such as Latin, Greek, or languages, or something like really obscure, which has a very small intake, but a very niche demand as well. When it comes to IB points, similar process goes on. 34 to 40 is the range, but competitive applications and competitive offers are given at anything between 39 to 42, with HL subjects being at least 19 on 21. This is a minimum requirement for almost all our STEM programs, such as engineering, computer sciences, economics, and some of the sciences like psychology as well. When it comes to CBSE and ISC, our most competitive programs have 495s and 190 in your entry requirements, and that 95 mandatorily needs to be in your math. And that is one one ask that we have that is non-negotiable. Most of our programs require specific subjects at A levels or HL or equivalent. Like I said about math, when you're looking at engineering, if it is chemical or biochemical, we'll need biology, chemistry mandatory. For our biomedical engineering and for our biochemistry programs, we also require math as a mandatory requirement besides bio and chem. We generally don't do any additional testing except for when you're applying for medicine, law, or computer sciences. For medicine, we are accepting UCAT. For law, we require you to take the LNAT. And for computer sciences, we have started asking for something called Skills Tertiary Assessment Test, which is STAT, S-T-A-T. For all of these tests, it's only law that you need to have your scores with you when you're applying and for medicine as well. For computer sciences STAT program, we will invite you to take the test only if you are meeting the initial entry requirements and your personal statement is up to the mark. For our architectural courses, we require portfolios. There are a couple of other courses as well where we will get in touch with you for an additional piece of work, or we'll be inviting you for an interview as and where necessary. But generally, we will not be asking for any additional tests, be it TMUA or ESAT or anything of that sort, which other of our competitors are using at the moment. Finally,
sorry, on the stat, Davina, if I can just have a little clarification here. You said that once the student applies and you make them an offer, it'll be conditional to their clearing the stat, or do they need to do it before they apply?
So they will basically, so once you make an application through UCAS, we will then ask you if you meet our entry requirements and the SOP is great, it is then when we'll tell them to take the STAT exam for us. I will be able to share more details about STAT separately. I can share the links with you, which you can forward it to people. But yeah, it is not to be taken before you apply to us. So there's a window between between January and February when you can register for it, and the test will happen in March. So it's that delayed in this cycle, and it is only for people who will clear our first stage with us. So that's with STAT.
Yes, please carry on. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem at all. And in terms of our English language requirements, again, we are one of the very few universities which do not give IELTS waivers. So for us, you will need to take IELTS. An average score that we are looking at is 7.5 overall with no less than 7 in individual components. But please visit our individual course specific pages as well, where you will be able to know what the exact requirements will be, because these vary from department to department and will be subjective when you get the offer letter as well. Moving on to your personal statement. I'm sure this has already been covered, but just to speak specifically from a UCL point of view, what because we do not have interviews mandatorily, we do not have that many entrance tests that you'll be looking at, we do give a lot of importance on the personal statement. And that is precisely the reason why our turnaround time in terms of offers is also very slow. So once you apply to us, we will wait until the deadline, which is for this cycle, 29th of Jan, before we start coming back to students with our decisions. So we will wait for all the applications to come in, whether you're applying in October or whether you're applying end of Jan. You will only start hearing back from us from February onwards. Of course, the earlier you apply, the sooner a decision will be made on your application, and we will be able to prioritize a quick response. In terms of your personal statement, this is your chance to demonstrate your interest and the knowledge of the subject and the engagement you have had with the subject for the last 3 years at least. So your 10th, 11th, 12th grade will be crucial to tell us as to why you are choosing the course that you're choosing, how are you fit for it, and the basic element that we are seeing in your personal statement is your suitability for the course. Of course, like with everyone else, there's only one personal statement that goes to all 5 UCAS choices. We only accept applications through UCAS. We do not accept applications directly at the undergraduate level. And your personal statement should be personal to your motivations and interest. It shouldn't be a personal story or an epiphany that you might have had and that made you decide what to do, or ever since I was a child, I had this dream and all of that. We don't want to hear all of that. What we want to know is what your motivation is towards picking up that particular subject that you're going to study, what your interests are, how have you built that interest, and what have you done to sustain and support it. 70, yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Davina. This is a very important point that I want to clarify with you because, you know, a lot of the time students may have a personal motivation, like, you know, something you saw someone at home struggling with, let's say, language, and then you went ahead to build a, you know, language-based app or model. And so the motivation comes from having seen that. So
Yeah.
if a student starts with that personal story, is that like a no-no?
That's a very good question, Richa. And I would say that, you know, making that as an anchor or a starting point is good enough. But the moment that story starts taking the spotlight, that is when you lose points. So we don't want you to focus on that story or on that background. We want you to say that you started it. That was your reason, your key reason of why you picked up, say, for instance, if there was a language problem and you want to study linguistics. So you'll start with that, but then you'll come up as to what have you done so far. So you may have enrolled yourself in some master classes, or you may have taken some extra reading, or you may be working on a biology project with a professor or a teacher at your school. So those are the things that we are looking at.
Got that. Thank you.
So 75 to 85% of your personal statement should be academic or allied to academics for us. It needs to be reflective, it needs to be evaluative, and it shouldn't be a shopping list of things or a bucket list of things that I'm the head girl or I'm the sports captain, I've been in debates, and so on and so forth. What we are looking at is your skills that you've gained from these positions of responsibilities and how they link up. I'll talk more about as we progress into the presentation. But yeah, that's there. But this kind of writing, also to note, is only for 2025 intake. From 2026, UCAS is changing their personal statement format. And the same thing that you have been writing as an essay for this intake will convert into 3-part question from 2026 intake. So the crux of the statement will be the same. It's just the presentation that is going to change from 2026. Moving on to the next slide. So what our admissions team tells us, basically, like I said, there's no fit pattern or there's no set square where we can say that, you know, yes, this will work and the other thing won't. We are looking at academic ability with a deep interest in the subject. we are looking at motivation and the enthusiasm for study. So basically, you need to be a devout follower of whatever course that you're planning to go for, at least when you're looking at UCL, and I'm sure a lot of people who apply to us also apply to Oxford or Cambridge as well. So that's the motto that even they take up when they are evaluating their applications. We need to see your understanding of what the degree involves. We need to see transferable skills. So like I said, we don't want a list of things, but we want to see as to what you have learned and how it is applicable to the course that you're going to apply for. And that should reflect items like critical thinking, analytical thinking, communication, time management, a lot of independent learning, independent studying, independent research, if at all you have the opportunity to do that, some work shadowing, or so on and so forth. We can go on with that. We also want to see your potential to contribute both in and outside of classroom. So this is the part where we say that, it's not just about your extracurriculars, but it is more about your supercurriculars as to what you have done outside of academics that links to the course that you will be applying for. So it's not just about your classroom study, but also about what additional impact or what additional things that you have done that will have an impact on your application. And one of the most crucial things that I cannot help but stress is that a good personal statement will not compensate for grades below the requirements. So you need to have the minimum eligibility score, minimum eligibility requirement in terms of your scores, and only then we will move on to your personal statement in terms of your suitability.
And there would be little to no flexibility in this, right? Because this flexibility question came up a couple of times with other universities also.
Yes, so we do not. So for UCL, I'll give you a very recent example. We had a student for BSc Computer Sciences. He had so his conditions were 95, 95, 95, 95, 90. He had English, PCM, and physical education. He ended up scoring an 89 in physical education, which is a course which is not even related to computer sciences. But because he wasn't meeting the condition, we could not give him an offer. We did not convert his conditional into unconditional offer letter. So we are very stringent with our entry requirements, and we are very stringent when it comes to meeting the conditions as well. So coming back to when I said about what are we looking at in a personal statement, I talked about motivation, understanding your degree. So what we are looking at, so when you're writing it, you need to prove it. You need to show, and you need to give us examples. We need to see a backup as to how you are backing your statements up. So how can you demonstrate that you have the interest and the ability that admission tutors are looking for? So when we talk about motivation or interest or understanding, we are looking at what additional initiatives have you taken? The kind of taster days, if you have attended master classes, if you are doing wider reading, if you're doing museum or cultural institutions visits, work shadow, relevant work experience. And this is not necessarily linked towards just master classes or taster days hosted by UCL. It could be done from any other institution. It could be your Coursera courses or online certifications or something that you may have explored in order to understand whether this area is genuinely of interest to you or not. So we are looking at those kind of initiatives and those kind of associations in a way. Then when it comes to the point of understanding what the degree involves, we recommend students to basically not just go through the course page that you're going to apply to, but we are looking at, we recommend them to research about the department and of the faculty that it sits under. So a good thing would be to understand or to know as to what kind of work goes on in the institution, in that faculty, where the research money is going into, what kind of grants are they getting, what are the recent projects that are taking up. So for UCL specifically, we have something called grant challenges. And that will exactly tell you as to what our current students are doing, what kind of opportunities do they get right from their undergraduate years itself. And that basically allows you to understand whether if in Gen Z terms, if the vibe of the university matches with yours or not, right? And besides that, we also encourage students to get in touch with our current student ambassadors, which can be, who can be like, reached out via the Unibuddy chat platform. Again, all of that is available on our website. So speak to them, talk to them, get to know as to what worked out for them, or what kind of work or research or extracurriculars or supercurriculars that they are doing at the university. So that will allow you to understand, and you'll know what the degree involves and what UCL thrives at. Finally, coming to transferable skills, again, I've already covered that. So anything that you have done in terms of your volunteering, work experience, any hobbies or interests that you might have had, talk about the skills development, your professional development through that. So we are not only, you may be a national level squash player, or you may be an Indian Idol, or you may be a national level artist. Talk about these skills like precision or dedication or your kind of routine. Because what we're trying to see is that when you will be at university, you will be in a whole new space, you'll be in a whole new sphere, and we want to see your adaptability, how good you can follow, how good you can thrive, how well you can thrive at the university as well. Reflect on what you have learned through everything that I've talked about, and that reflection will show us as to whether you are a good fit for us or not. So it's not just about telling us as to what you are or who you are. We want to see as to how well-rounded a person you are and how well-suited you are, and the fact that you know as to what you're signing up for at our university. That is the key theme that we look at when we see our personal statements. Finally, yes, a tip that I would like to give here, we see a lot of students quoting in their applications. So to quote or not to quote, that is the question, right? So when and if you're using any quotations, any proverbs or anything, you need to question yourself as to, do you have a very good reason for using it? Number one. Number two, if you have a good reason, then is that reason obvious in your personal statement? Is it very, very clear? Is it relatable? And it answers to, or it enhances your application, right? And number three is, please check whether this person actually said it and you have not picked it up from some Google images or something and some XYZ person is attributed to it. Please do your fact checking carefully. And in what context did they speak? What did they mean by it? You need to have that understanding right as well. And finally, if it is a cliched statement, please avoid using it. If it is the kind of statement or things that lots of other applications have used in their personal statements, please do not bother writing it on your personal statement, because that will only mean that you're following the rut and you're simply like, following what others might have written, or it's a very popular thing that a lot of students look at. So don't be rhetoric in your questions, avoid using puns, avoid using any comedic, statements or anything. We want to see professionalism. We want to see that you've written a good, to the point, succinct statement that answers the basic question or the basic title, that is your statement of purpose, as to what is the purpose of applying for a particular course at a competitive university like UCL. And then finally, if you do get accepted into UCL, we'll be thrilled to have you. And we can assure you a bright future when it comes to careers. Just to touch upon our careers opportunities afterwards, you have access to our careers and employability teams right from year one. And it goes on until even after you graduate. So we had over 700 employees attend UCL Careers event every year, and over 15,000 vacancies were advertised in the year 22-23. I do understand that these stats are a bit outdated, but they have been taken from QS and the QS report only came until 2022. So we are in the process of updating our stats. But 90%, almost 91% of our graduates have found employment in areas relevant to their field or have gone into postgraduate study within 15 months of graduating from UCL. And the median salary, because I know a lot of parents and students have this question, as of 2022-23, 34,500 was the median salary for full-time work, and this is applicable to students from all nationalities and not just restricted to the home students. And finally, you'll be highly, highly desirable to almost all our employers. We are ranked globally top 10 and first in London for graduate employability. The world is your oyster. We have plenty of industry links and partnerships, and these are just some of the companies that have been advertised here. And almost all of them have offices all around the world. So it's not just restricting you to London or UK, but your doors are open all across the world, as long as you are proactive, you are engaging with the right people, you are reaching out to our careers and employability teams at the right time, and taking all the initiatives and making all the efforts to excel in your career. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Open to any and all questions.
So there are many, many of those. So let me start with this question about medicine. So it says that you don't seem to have any requirements on your website for CBSE and ICSE students applying for medicine. So do you not accept those curricula for medicine? You don't.
So we only accept IB and A levels on our medicine program.
Okay, all right. That's a very clear answer on that one. Someone has said, is maths HL required for law in IBDP? I guess not.
No, so for our law programs, there is no subject-specific requirement. However, we have our entry requirements for IB would require in your HL at least 2 essay-based subjects, ideally 1716 at HL level.
Right, wonderful. Okay, here there's this question by Vandana. She says, we heard city colleges in London, like the UCL, are more expensive than other colleges in England away from the city. Is that true?
That is true. Again, the more central in London you are, the higher the living expenses you are paying. London is the most expensive city in the UK as well. So whilst a lot of other universities' living expenses would be somewhere between 14 to 15,000 pounds a year, we advise 18 to 20,000 pounds a year. Also, not to forget that you're in London. Students are carried away with all the shopping, with all the concerts, with all the theater and everything. So you need to keep into mind all of those additional expenses as well that need to be budgeted. So yeah.
Right. Okay, so there's another question over here about the minimum math predicted grade is 95, right? A student is asking. I think there are courses where you don't need a 95, right? 90.
In terms of our entry requirements, in terms of our entry requirements, when it comes to math, our STEM programs will need 95 at the predicted level only, and in your actual exams as well. Our courses in arts and humanities, where math is not a requirement, may have a lower entry requirements there. But all of STEM, CS, Econ, they have, and management science as well, 95 in math is mandatory.
It's mandatory, right? So that's good. That's very clear, right? So your website mentions step 2 for maths and economics. So step 2 is, again, is it part of the conditional offer? Do they need to take it?
So step 2 is only required for any course that requires further math at A levels equivalent. So, and those courses are only within our department, our Faculty of Mathematical Sciences. So if you're looking at studying pure math, that's when we require step 2. Otherwise, not a requirement. So wherever you see an A-level requirement of further math, that is where we need step 2 for IB and other CBSE, ISC students.
Right. Okay, so here's a question from a parent saying, you mentioned that you would look at subjects from grade 10 onwards. What if you choose the subject only in grade 11, like economics?
Yeah. So see, your specific subjects will come in 11th and 12th itself, but we are also looking at your 10th board exams. So we don't require you to have an econ or a specific subject in 10th, but your social sciences, social studies or sciences will be required.
Right. Okay. So that's again very clear. Now I have one related question here that Indian students do often see a dip in grade 11. So your grade 10 scores can be stellar, and then grade 11 just and then grade 12 comes back, right? So how does UCL perceive that?
So we only base our offers on the 12th predicted. And we do get this question plenty of time from students as well. I would say that if you are targeting institutions like UCL, Imperial, Oxford, Cambridge, you need to be serious with your studies in 11th as well, just so that your counselor can give you a higher predicted when you're ready to apply to us. So if, for instance, you're scoring 75, 80, 85 in your 11th grade, unless you're an all-rounder or unless you are really good at all other things, your counselor may feel a bit reserved in terms of giving a 95 predicted. So make sure that, if you are targeting such universities, you need to be serious in your grade 11th as well.
Got that, Davina. Very good. Thank you so much for giving us
Thank
such
you, Davina.
wonderful, clear answers. Romy, are you trying to ask her something?
No, really. No, thank you so much for joining us, Davina. I know you rushed back, and you still made it very close to time. Thank you for giving us so much insight. We really needed to get some insight into UCL, So thanks for your inputs. Yeah, thank you. And
I'll just post my email.
ID, please. Yes, thank you.
Chat box. Can I meeting group chat?
Yeah, in the meeting group chat, that'll be great.
And we have Palak waiting now. She's running late. I mean, now we have little time with her because she has another meeting in a short while.
I'm so sorry. I wasn't sure that she was here, so I just kept
She
chatting.
was, so I was
so
messaging
sorry
her.
about that, Palak.
No, that's all right. So we can start with Palak and we can kind of quickly, get some answers to our questions on Kings. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Richa. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Palak. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No problem. Just trying to set the camera a bit.
Huh?
Yeah.
There you are, Palak. So sorry.
No problem. It's just that the schedule these days is so packed for everybody.
Yes. Right. So, Palak, thank you so much. King's is again a college that almost everybody is looking at. And, apart from the fact that it's highly rated and competitive, it's also in London, which makes it, so attractive. So I won't take any more of your time. Please go ahead with your view of what you wanted to say about, I think, the personal statement and about King's.
I'll just share the. Can you see the deck?
Not yet. It says Palak has started screen sharing, but it's not really visible right now.
Yeah, we can see it now. Yes.
So it had come on, so maybe you can try that as
Can you see it now?
I think, yeah, now it started now. Yes.
It's not. I'm just trying to hide this for screen share. Yep. Okay, hi guys. I briefly will introduce. So this is Palak. I'm the international officer for King's based in India. I will take a couple of minutes to just set some context about King's and also kind of touch few important points around personal statements, because that is something as a document which is really important if you're applying to competitive set of universities, because the minimum entry requirement scores becomes a prerequisite, which again is very, very important. But then what is step next is your personal statement LOIs that make or break the application. So for Kings, we are about 200 years old. We are a leading member of the Russell Group, top 10 universities in the UK and top 38 in the world, as per the latest US rankings. We have fantastic alumni all over the globe doing some great work. We've produced 14 Nobel laureates so far, a fact that we take great pride in. To give you a brief about the King's community today, we are a large university with close to 35,000 students, 16 to 18,000 international students from about 200 different countries. And from India, you will see a lot of familiar faces, which is close to about 1,000 plus students at a particular point across our 5 campuses is what our Indian ratio is. Just to spend a minute on the slide, this is our location slide. King's is based in central London, as central as it could get. So you cannot be in central London and not see King's around. So our hospital, libraries, campuses are spread across central London. All the red boxes that you see on the screen are either campuses, hospital, or libraries that are owned and managed by King's. And all the subjects that you see mentioned next to these are, of course, the subjects that are taught there. So where you'll be based depends on what you choose to study with us. The purple boxes that you see on the screen are either hospital, libraries, campuses that are owned and managed. All the purple boxes that you see on the screen are famous tourist landmarks. And if you see, it's not just close proximity from our campuses, but because of our location and prestige, we also have very, very strong connections with them. So, of course, it's different subject areas will have different register. But for example, if you choose to study law with us, we are right across the Royal Courts of Justice. If you choose to study English literature set of courses and history set of courses, then the museums and the libraries are just around. So we're pretty much surrounded by the very best that London has to offer. And often when I meet students, their experience has been, because it's not just one campus, but 5 campuses spread across central London, the whole of London seems to be their classroom. So they've enjoyed every bit of it, enjoying London through their years of study with us. Just to give you a closer look to these small boxes that you saw just as numbers. So this is a Strand campus, which has humanities, law, engineering, social sciences, store. So if you choose to study any of these subjects with us, this is where you'll be based at. This is my favorite campus for King's, exceptionally beautiful. Right opposite that, the number 2 on the screen that you saw is the Bush House, which is our business school. So the BBC used to operate from here, and then they left and we took over. This is our Waterloo campus. This is our medicine school, which is the guys' campus. One library, exceptionally beautiful piece of architecture. I've seen students who've never entered school libraries have loved their time here. It's a 24/7 library, and it's an experience to kind of spend time here. Now, what you can choose to study at King's. So King's will have close to about 180 to 200 different set of courses. It's of course not possible to put everything on the screen, but we will have courses in STEM, in health, humanities, management, economy, etc. Again, my 2 advices to you from what you can take from this slide is: 1, don't just get obsessed with the course names. If you want to do management, there is other courses beyond business management, right? So there's management with modern languages, there will be computer science with management, there's mathematics with management, etc. Because the more popular the course is, the more competitive it gets. Business is super competitive. So just be mindful of that. Go through course. I mean, if you're interested in studying, say, eco with us, there will be politics, philosophy, economics as well. There's eco with management as well. So just spend some time on the website of the university that you're interested in to figure out what you want, right? And then go through the course modules of what is taught in these 3 years for you to figure out what interests you. So, for example, if you're interested in eco, LSE's eco curriculum might sound great to you, but if you look at King's, you might feel that, oh, I've also wanted to study management, so eco and management is a better combination. So don't just get obsessed with course names, because 10 different universities will have something exactly same as the course name, but what they teach and how they teach will be different, right? So look at that. There are also BA versus BSc with certain subjects, so look at that as well. So do that level of research and also make sure before application that you're meeting the minimum entry requirements for the course you're looking for. And this entry requirements will be 2-level entry requirements. One is overall, which is your IB scores or A levels or ISC or CBSE scores. Also, there could be subject specific entry requirements. So for eco finance set of courses, you will need maths, HL maths if you're looking at IB. So things like that is very, very prominently given on the course page. Please double check that before you make an application. We also have 300 plus study abroad partners. So, I mean, all courses don't offer this, but a lot of courses at an undergrad level. So when you log in, you will see the box on the course page that says, do we have an option 4th year, which could either be the placement year or a study abroad year. So students who always wanted to go to probably US, but are now studying in UK for some reason about to experience that, can always kind of choose that as a study abroad partner option. Now coming to personal statement, again, just being a little mindful of time. So UCAS, and I was listening to Davina's presentation for a bit, so I will not repeat what's already been said. It's very, very important for competitive set of courses, because if you talk about Kings, we only have interviews for medicine set of courses. Other than that, for you to explain why you deserve the seat you're applying for, because the ratio of the number of applications received versus the seats on offer at the competitive set of universities is quite unfair, to be very honest. So very, very key for competitive set of courses. You aren't given a prompt like the US. This is going to change after the 2026 entry onwards. UCAS is trying to change this into structured set of questions. But right now, it's a blank canvas with 4,000 characters, which roughly is about 47 lines. And it's called personal statement for a reason, because it has to be your personal story. So don't do this mistake of copying what your cousins have written or your seniors have written or chat GPT, etc. The admission committee is much smarter than what you think they are. So, and UCAS also runs some very strong plagiarism checks. So don't, I mean, it's okay to take inspiration, but don't really kind of copy paste it. Now, broadly, what it should reflect is it should capture the attention quickly in terms of what you want to study. You should reflect why you want to study it, and it should not be like, I've always wanted to study physics since I was in the womb of my mother, etc. These are very, very cliche statements. Don't reflect a very strong personal statement. And one thing that you need to be very sure of at an undergrad level is that don't mention university names, no matter how obsessed you are to study with that university, so dream university, be it King's or any other university, because that same personal statement is going to all 5 choices that you've written. So it's not a very pleasant sight to read any other university's name. So focus more on the course at an undergrad level, and of course at the postgrad level, focus more on the university specifically. Now, what the content should be is roughly 4 to 5 different paragraphs. This is, of course, not set in stone, but this is what it should look like. So, introduction, conclusion, and the middle 3 paragraphs should be what you've done so far to support your interest and motivation for that course, any inside and outside classroom activities that is related to your course, what super curriculums you've done, what do you want to do after this, how does it course align to your career interests, etc. So various questions that can be answered. Just don't waste so much time to start with introduction, because students want to write the best introduction that will blow away the admission committee's mind, and they waste about month and a half just finishing that. First, finish your second, third, fourth paragraph, because mostly you will have that content by the time you start your personal statement, and then come to introduction and conclusion. Another important thing is introduction and conclusion should be equally important. What a lot of students do is they'll write an exceptional introduction, but they leave the conclusion open-ended and hanging, etc. It should all need to tie back to a perfect story. Now, this is what your structuring could look like. This is, of course, not set in stone. This is just a suggestion. So you start with why you want to study that subject, what sparked your interest to do that course, and then you come, what have you done so far with your subjects and with your internships, projects, research papers, TED Talks, books, etc. And then what skill sets have you learned doing that? How's that added value and weight to your application to make you a stronger applicant? And then you kind of conclude it nicely and tie it into a whole story is what the personal statement should be like. You can start with very, very fundamental questions. It starts with very, very fundamental set of questions. So why have you chosen this area? And then, whatever skill sets, additional things you've done, just be reflective of the fact that how that is adding value. So if you're applying for an eco course, for example, and if you've done an internship at a bank, then what skill set did you learn that's made you stronger with numbers, it's made you stronger with analysis, your number crunching has become stronger, etc. If you're applying for marketing or management set, of course, and if you've watched a movie, for example, Steve Jobs documentary, just as an example, what have you learned from that that sparked your interest in marketing? All of those things. So it should be specific to the course. Now, what you include now, eco-personal statements are very, very academic in focus. So make sure, what do I mean by academic? So for example, if you're applying for eco and if you're a national level swimmer, if you can't draw synergies, don't put it. I think this some bits is already covered by Davina, so I'm not going to get into much detail there. But make it academic focus. About 80% to 90% should be academic focus. Focus on your skills and competencies. And very important to also, if you've attended certain summer schools, tasted days, public lectures, again, not specific to a university. So if you've attended at UCAS, it's not that you can't mention it in your personal statement. So just make sure to draw the skills that you've learned in that experience, and then how is that adding value, and how does it give you an edge to another person's application. So those things are important. Now, what you should avoid is lying and exaggerating. I've always, since I was a child, I've always wanted to become an astronaut and do astrophysics and things like that. Does not make sense, right? Plagiarism, big offense in the UK. So even UCAS run strong plagiarism checks. Universities have strong anti-ChatGPT tools, which will cancel down everything you get with ChatGPT. University names you've already mentioned. Please use UK seller spellings and not US seller spellings if you're applying for a UK university. These are small things, but it really kind of helps in your personal statement being strong. Again, a lot of Indian students are obsessed with this of beautifying language, exercises of thesaurus, etc. Unless you're applying for English literature language set of courses, we don't need beautification. What we need is good content and good English and structured English. Quotes, I think we've already covered in the previous presentation, so not getting there. But don't use bullet points or shopping list as like 10 bullet points, and just get into the depth of things rather than just mentioning the 10 things you've done that makes you great. We're not interested in that. What we're interested is, again, be reflective of the fact of those activities and get into depth rather than just being broad. Not just, again, this we've already discussed, but what I will pick up from here is eliminate sentences that don't add value. If you think that if you've done a certain thing, which just could be like a national level thing, but if it's not related to your course, if it's not adding value there, then my suggestion is don't put it, because it's just 4,000 characters. If you put in a lot of things there, you might think it's a 4-digit character account, but when you actually sit down of writing it and structuring into paragraphs and putting everything to put, you realize it's not too much there. So these are some things that you could possibly, education is the best weapon to change the world, and these unnecessary cliche quotes, please avoid that. Instead, a better way to start is, probably you've worked at a certain project which has sparked your interest in something. I was speaking to a student the other day, she was applying for economics, and she said, my interest to study economics actually sparked when I've been starting going to the supermarket to buy vegetables with my grandfather, and the fluctuation in onion prices is something that sparked my interest of how things change and how the economy functions. So something as genuine and personal to you like that. Okay, so again, this we've already covered with introduction. Some things that really add value is, if you've done any volunteer work, internships, even online courses, doesn't necessarily have to be paid certificate courses as well. Modules, TED Talks. If you watch TED Talks, you usually have a reading list and footnotes, etc. there.
So, Palak, if I can interrupt here, one of the listeners is asking if they can see the previous slide again, please. The opening statement is to avoid. So very quickly, if you could give them a glance of that.
This one?
The statements that should, avoid.
This one.
Yeah, opening lines to avoid. Yeah. I hope, Vandana, you can quickly read this. And we'll be sharing the recording in any case, right? Thank you.
So again, just to sum it up, something that's really helps students is two things. One, just go through the course modules first, then figure out what skill set is needed for you to be that course, and then backward integrated. So for example, if you're applying for eco and you see that the eco curriculum is on econometrics, macroeconomics, international economics, microeconomics, and just try to do things that kind of align to that. And second, record your personal statement once you're done in your own voice and listen to it. You might realize that you try to put across a certain point, but it's not getting that way. So you have to rearrange a certain set of lines and paragraphs. So these things are usually useful. Please start on time. A well-drafted personal statement is very evident if you've given enough time or started just a month. Okay, I think we've covered all of this. I'm just being mindful of time. Sorry, guys.
I know you've
Okay.
got something going in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. So conclusion is very, very important. Like I said, as introduction is. So don't repeat all the words you've written, but just make it like a story and tie it back nicely there. Just to answer a couple of other questions that I usually asked about Kings. So we have 300 plus student society, 70 plus sports clubs, so lots of things to follow your passion. And the cricket team gets to practice at the Oval Ground, which is apparently a big thing for cricket fans. And there's film societies, best subject specific societies, Indian society, lots of things to do. Careers and employability, again, we have 4 different career service divisions. They organize about 1,000 plus events in a year. They'll connect you with employers, guest lectures, master classes, networking nights, lots to do, but you also have to be pretty proactive to be a part of these opportunities. Our graduates are making us proud, again, not just in India or the UK, but across the globe, doing some fantastic work with the government, with MNCs, startups, lots of things there. And just probably the last bit is on accommodation. So we have 12 halls of residences across our 5 campuses that are owned and managed by us. And you can pick and choose depending on what your budget and preferences are. We also have intercollegiate halls where all University of London students stay together. Those are the only ones that are catered, where food's available. Other than that, you kind of cook and manage your own food. There's of course various options available at the campus at very subsidized pricing, etc. But these halls are not catered halls.
Palak, would you have a couple of minutes after this, or would you need to move immediately?
I can stay for 5 minutes. I will also share. One second. Yeah, guys, you can also scan this code in case you want any further information. Then also download the prospectus through this. So you can put this, just put in your details, and it's going to capture it there. Yeah, I'll leave it on the screen by the time we're talking. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I have a question, Palak. Like, we were talking about the changes in the personal statement. It's going to come in the question form now. Anything else that is set to change in the UCAS at all, the way we're presenting the application? Or-
LOI already changed, so that is already more structured with questions of how LOI works. UCAS also right now they're saying it's going to change for 2026. I think they've given 4-ish different questions on mitigation circumstances, things like that. But unless it comes into actual practice, is because it's changed a couple of times with timelines and different things. So as of now, this is there. Another important thing is that UCAS also runs advisory webinars, which is very useful information even for parents, etc. So you can sign up on their website, and they regularly do these webinars to kind of keep you informed with the changes as well.
Okay, I think somebody, and Richa had already answered this question, that we can apply it to more than one program, or we can apply to 2 programs at one college, right?
Yes,
We
but
can
those
do
are
that for
counted
feedback.
as 2 different choices.
Out of the 5, right? And there's this question from Hina that what are the ISC percentages you need for economics? I don't
It's
know
more
if you
than a
have it.
90%, more than a 90% from ISC. But again, the thing is that these are just prerequisites. It's not that a 90 will guarantee an offer, but this is the rule for academically high universities. The better your scores, the better the chances. But again, if you have the minimum prerequisite, then we will look at your application and it will have equal consideration. But again, make sure that your scores are strong enough. Also, for exact entry requirements. We've just updated the website. It was for IB, it was since the time I've been at King's, which is almost 5 years. We had 35 or 45, but they've just updated to 38 last week. So double check the entry requirements once more on the website before you make an application and see that you meet that entry requirement both with your predicteds as well as finals.
Right. That's a good tip for us to look at all the entry requirements now at this stage. Wonderful. So, Palak, a question about medicine. UCL told us that they do not, you do offer medicine, and UCL told us that they do not consider anyone but IB and A level, so they don't consider CBSE and ICSE students. Would you know if that's the case for King's Medicine as well?
That's not the case with King's at all. So we will consider CBSE. She said we will not accept state board students directly for our undergraduate courses. If you are doing a state board, you will have to go through the foundation route. But for medicine, there's nothing of CBSE not be considered. What is important for medicine is your UCAT exam, your scores, patient service experience, and then there's interviews.
Wonderful.
And this year, in fact, we had 30 seats for medicine for across the globe for students, but we've just had this announcement that it's now 90, which is probably one of the highest that we've ever. So also increases your chances.
That's very, very useful. So I think that with this, we've sort of covered all the questions that we had over here for you, Palak. Thank you so much. And again, apologize for the mess up on time. People have so many questions that it keeps going on. But thank you so much for giving us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Palak, and I hope we've answered most of the questions regarding UK universities to our listeners. If there's anything else, they can reach out to us.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, and all the
Before
best.
we wrap up, thank you so much, Palak. And before we wrap up, guys, a little overview of our work at iKnow.me. Here goes. So that's us. And thank you so much for joining us. Please reach out if you have any further questions and have a great week.